Count off lang for attendance.
Wala, oy. G8, Jakamos.
Night 2 present.
3 present.
4 present.
5, 6,
6 present.
7 present.
8 present.
9 present.
10 present. 11 present. 13 present.
14 present.
15,
15 present.
16, 17, 18, 19,
19 present.
20, 21 present.
22 present.
23 present. 24, 25 present.
26 present.
27,
28%. 30%.
last na ka, Angelo?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, thank you everyone. Hey, good morning guys. Our topic for today is pre-colonial. So what is pre-colonial? The Philippines pre-colonial period was filled with indigenous peoples engaged in healthy trade with various cultures and economies in the region of the foreign traders. The pre-colonial period broadly refers to the span of time prior to the introduction of European colonialism in areas across the world. So from the word pre, so before the colonial, so mga gipangbuhat o mga butang nga sa wala pa mga kolonyal. Kaya yan.
So, the cultural achievements of pre-colonial Philippines include those covered by the prehistory and the early history, the 900 to 1521 of the Philippine archipelago. Inhabitants, the pre-colonial forebears of today Filipino people among the culture of achievements of the native peoples, beliefs, system, and culture in general that are notable in many ethnic societies range from agriculture, societal, environmental concepts, spiritual beliefs, up to advances in technology, science, and the arts. So we all know period before the conquest, the Philippines' scientific and technological growth dates back to pre-colonial times, and early Filipino inhabitants were already employing various plants and herbs as medicine before the Spaniards arrived. Next. So the natives of the archipelago already had practices links in science and technology, but Filipinos were already aware of the medicinal and therapeutic properties of plants and the methods extracting medicine from herbs. They already had an alphabet, number system, and earlier literature is classified as oral and written. The ancient of folks used natives syllabary and wrote on fragile materials. They also used pointed objects like sticks, joggers, and irons as pens. Mimetic dances often accompanied the songs and rituals and were the persecutors of drama from So we all know that culture. We all know culture last. I. We all know that culture before is kanang they classified as oral and written, and the ancient folks used native syllabary and wrote on fragile materials. Next. So agriculture abundant Filipinos were already engaged farming. The Banawi rice terraces are among the sophisticated products of engineering. The natives based their faith on abundance of harvest, different plants, and animals. So, kailan naman tag Banawi rice terraces So, na siya sa una. Next.
So mao ni ang ilang gipanggamit before. So although ang kaning fire kay dili siya coming from technology, pero ang methods ani kay nagamit man nila, which is maka-produce ni siya og kanang light og heat. So ang kaning jar kay mao ni ilahang earth before na ikuan ug mao sad nilang storage kay before wala man tay mga refrigerator, so mao na ilang gigamit para ikuan. So next is ay kabaw. Mao ni ilang gamit una ang kabaw para sa ilang mangkuan sa ilang pagtanom farm. So next, since wala tay papel sa una, bato or katong mga dahon na ilang gipanggamit siya para sa ilang suwatan, sa ilang mga records. Next is ang kaning barter. So before also jud kayo ang barter sa mga butang para sa kuan kanang basta mga kuan sila butang nga gikan sa laing tao or gikan sa laing nasod ug come up sa ilahang kuan sa ilahang una ba nga kanang pwede day na nga kanang butang makakuan day ta nga butanga. So next is ang herbal. So before guys wala jud tay tambal nga gikan sa laboratory. So ato ang pharmacy before jud kay ang kuan ang forest. So ang kaning tambal nato sa una is mga katong mga sagbot-sagbot mga dahon ana nga gikan sa forest. Ora. Makita ra. Ayo. Okay ra. Me and Christian Dorado where I will be reporting colonial period, the Spanish and American colonization. Spanish colonization provided the Philippines with modern means of construction, walls, roads, bridges, and other large infrastructures were built using some of the engineering skills and tools brought by the Spaniards. In addition, the Spanish government developed health and educational systems that were enjoyed by the Principalia class. Some examples of inventions during Spanish colonization. The University of Santo Tomas, also known as UST and officially as the Political and Royal University of Santo Tomas, Manila, is a private Catholic research university in Manila, Philippines, founded on April 28, 1611 by Spanish Friar Miguel de Benavides. Second one is Iglesia de San Pablo de Manila. who it was founded on 1571. Founders are Order of Saint Augustine, Province of Most Holy Name of Jesus of the Philippines. Dedication to Saint Paul, consecrated 1607. Reading and writing for more knowledge and wisdom. So good morning everyone. I'm Christine Dorado. So I am the one who will tackle about American colonization during colonial period. So American occupation modernized almost all aspects of life in the Philippines. They established a government agency, the Bureau of Science, for the sole purpose of nurturing development in the field of science and technology. Science during the American period was inclined towards agriculture, food processing, medicine, and pharmacy. Moreover, they established public educational system and improved the engineering works and the health condition of the people. Next. And agriculture, food processing, and medicine or pharmacy. So, for example, for this, we can see that Dutch image is a cookie being processed by the machine in a factory. Cookies appear to have their cookie value. That's real university. Relatively cookies Dutch or cookie, meaning cook as cake. It introduces to English in the very early 18th century. It is thought this term caught on more in the United States due to the strong Dutch heritage in early America. English and Dutch immigrants brought the coffee to America in the 1600s. The Dutch used the word cookie while the English primarily referred to cookies. A small cake, biscuits, or tea cakes, or specific names such as jumbo or macaron. Much like cookies are made from a soft, thicker dough and are denser than an English biscuits. So cookies are being cooked softer, larger, and chunkier than biscuit. Next,
Excuse me, Rella, please turn off your mic, please.
Ay, wala ka.
Papa ko naman.
Ay, di kay ka mandungog guys ha. Sorry.
So colonial pantologist is a groundbreaking history of the role of science and medicine in the American colonization of the Philippines from 1898 through the 1930s. Warwick Anderson describes how American colonizers sought to maintain their own health and stamina in a foreign environment while exerting control over and civilizing a population of 7 million people spread out our 7,000 island. In the process, he traces a significant transformation in the thinking of colonial doctors and scientists about what was most threatening to the health of colonists. During the late 19th century, They understand the tropical environment as the greatest danger, and they sought to help their fellow colonizer to acclimate. Later, as their attention shifted to the role of microbial pathogens, colonial scientists came to view the Filipino people as a contaminated race, and they launched public health initiatives to reform Filipinos' personal hygiene practices. Next, well, so another example is in medical fields, European herbals, this dispensaries and textbook were used in the American colonies, and beginning in the early 18th century, British patent medicines were imported such as purgatives, emetics, opium, centura bark, camphor, potassium nitrate, and mercury was among the most widely used drugs, and Hippocrates is credited with being the man who invented medicine. He was a great physician who wrote the Hippocratic Corpus, a collection of 70 medical works. He is also accredited with the inventions of Hippocratic Oath for Physician. But according to C. Policarpio Bantog in his book, A Short History of Medicine in the Philippines during the Spanish regime, 1565 to 1898, there were no authentic monuments have came down to us that indicate with some certainty early medical practices regarding the beginnings of medicines in the Philippines. So uh, the historian from the United States named Edward Gillard Bourne described that the Philippines became ahead of all the other European colonies in providing healthcare to ill and invalid people during the start of the 17th century, a time period when the Philippines was a colony of Spain. From the 17th and 18th centuries, there had been a state of the art, medical, and pharmaceutical science developed by Spanish friars based on Filipino corderos or the therapists that was unique to the Philippine island. Next. So forestry in the Philippines, environmental nationhood and empire 1900s to 1937, Nathan E. Roberts, chair of the supervisory committee, Professor Linda Nash, Department of History, during the early 20th century, U.S. forestry officials and Filipino allies established new foundations for forest management and resource use in the Philippines. American forestry advocates deployed colonial forest management to both legitimate U.S. imperialism and strengthen claims to state power at home. In both the colony and the metropole, Progressive argued that scientific forestry provided the stable, economist, efficient resource use and the defense of the collective good as essential part of U.S. colonial forestry was a capitalist development and the collection of environmental knowledge of the tropics. But as U.S. forestry officials sought to modify and manage Philippine forests, they were forced to contented with unknown and challenging environmental conditions that shape how forest use unfolded. Next. So pharmacists, it was in 1830s when the true pharmacists were established in the Manila, Philippines. In 1871, a faculty of pharmacy was formally established, the University of Santo Tomas, and was later followed by the opening of well-appointed drugstore. The Philippines, the Philippines Shazams known by several names in different languages. Catalonan Babaylans were the first healers within the tribal communities of ancient Philippines. Later emerged folk doctors and the training and deployment of true medical practitioners. as can be seen in the progression of Philippine history. At present, medical personnel trained based on Western medicine, such as Filipino nurses, physicians, physical therapists, pharmacists, surgeons, and among others, coexist with a still thriving group of traditional healers that do not have formal education in scientific medicine, who often cater to people living in impoverished areas of the Philippines. And that's all done.
Thank you, Christian. Alright. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Karil Faith V. Ilomino. So, we are all wondering what happened to the past colonial period in the Philippines. So, when the nation gained independence, the government focused on using its limited resources and improving its science and technological capabilities. The important given to science grew. Programs were introduced and policies were amended, funds were channeled. So shortly after the World War II, Ferdinand Emmanuel Enrolin Marcos became the 60th president of the Philippines. So during Marcos' presidency, the important given to science grew. So in 1956, the government created a National Science Board to provide support for research projects, but the Science Act of 1958 replaced this with a more powerful National Science Development Board. So the National Science Development Board was established. In 1967, sciences courses revitalized in public high school by provided sciences teaching equipment. So Ferdinand recognized that technology was leading factor in economic development and channeled additional funds to support project applied sciences and science education. So the Philippine Sugar Institute tried to improve sugar production while the Philippine Tobacco Administration studied the tobacco industry. Further, post-war scientists screened the Philippines flora in search of antibiotics and other useful drugs. Their nutritional studies point to the deficiencies in Philippine diet. They sought the cause of kadang-kadang a coconut disease, and they resumed the study of agricultural, marine, and forest resources. So he also added the Philippine Coconut Research Institute to the NSBD to modernize the coconut industry. So, in 1972, he created the National Grain Authority to provide for the development of the rice and corn industry to full harness it for economy of the country. So he established Philippine Council for Research, the Philippine Council for Agricultural Research, for us to support the progressive development for agriculture, not just agriculture but also forestry and fisheries for the nation. And lastly, he established the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration during the post-colonial period in the Philippines. So, thank you for listening. May I call Aubrey to present or to give additional information.
Okay, so good morning everyone. I am Aubrey Impang, and to move forward, we will talk about the history of science and technology in the Philippines during the post-colonial period. So in 1935, the Philippines was inaugurated and ushered in a period of transition and political independence. So the Constitution acknowledged the importance of promoting scientific development for the economic development of the country, which is ang gipasabot nga Constitution ani is the Commonwealth of the Philippines. So by incorporating a provision, Article 9, 13, Section 4, declaring that the state shall promote scientific research and invention, arts and letters shall be under its patronage. So next, the Commonwealth government works towards the development of economic self-reliance, which would be necessary to sustain genuine political independence. Then next we have, it also created the National Economic Council or the NEC to prepare an economic program and advise the government on economic and financial questions. So next, the Commonwealth government likewise adopted measures to encourage and provide assistance to private Filipino businessmen in the establishment of industries and manufacturing enterprises. And it is also to provide assistance to businessmen undertaking mining, exploration, and development. So, nana diri ang Mines and Geosciences Bureau. So, for example, sa na-create nga agencies that kay like Bureau of Mining, so which is Mines and Geosciences and Bureau. So, para mo provide og assistance daw sa businessmen. So, next, we have increase appropriations for the Bureaus of Science, Plant, and Animal Health, and thereby encourage more scientific research for industrial purposes. And then, occupation of the Philippines by the Japanese brought educational and scientific activities. So during the World War II, it brought educational and scientific activities practically to a halt as able-bodied citizens joined the resistance movement. So sa post-colonial period sa Philippines, daghan nag-rise nga professional organizations of scientists and engineers. So these are the schools na nag-start of like build up sa mga scientists and engineers. And then followed closely to the growth of higher education in the Philippines. So mani sila ang mga schools. I think hindi niyo maklaro. These are the schools: University of the Philippines, Ateneo de Manila, De La Salle University, UST, and Ateneo de Davao, Siliman University, Xavier University, and University of San Carlos. The next, professional organization initiated changes in the collegiate curriculum for their specialization and work for improvements in educational standards. For example, actively work to improve standards. So, Philippine Medical Association actively work to improve standards and medical education. How? By limiting enrollment in medical colleges and adding courses required for the medical degree. Next, in the field of engineering, the Philippine Institute of Chemical Engineers initiated a series of conferences to discuss curriculum revisions for its profession. So the results of these conferences were to endorse Department of Education and Culture or DSC for official adaptation that took place on 1973 to 1974. So on the whole, there has been little innovation in the education and training of scientists and engineers since independence in 1946. So next, innovation in the education and training started since independence in 1946. In 1947, the Bureau of Science was recognized into an Institute of Science. Department of Science and Technology, or the PHIVOLCS, Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. And in 1952, the Commission on Volcanology was also created and placed under the National Research Council of the Philippines, or NRCP. And its function was primarily basic research on volcanology. So during post-colonial period, there are a lot of innovation happened, but there are too many to mention, Pajud. So we'll just end here, and that ends for our report this morning. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Report ba ang next group?
Wala man. 1-2 raman.
Okay, okay ra mo ba attendance then picture taking? Picture taking for attendance, I mean.
Okay.
So please open your cameras, guys. Girl, please go.
Sige. 1. Limuel, Jean Barrett, Isan. Okay. Jean Barrett na lang. Alright. And the reader. Right. Sino nanta? Sige. 1, 2, 3, smile. Alright. Let me check first. Alright, all good na?
So, meeting is adjourned na.
Alright, thank you so much everyone for
Thank you,
listening.
reporters. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Good job. Thank you.
Into best.